You're listening to the Double A Horror Highway. I'm Amy Ketchum.
And I'm Amy Kasio.
And today we're kicking off our October series by delving into the comprehensive discussion of a highly atmospheric film from the 2000s called The Descent. So, Kasio, this was your choice for our October to kick off with. Why did you want to start with this movie?
I have been dying to cover this movie for years with you, and you haven't seen it. And a lot of people like this movie, so I thought it would be a good choice for, a good scary movie for like just a good thriller, like a good tense thriller for Halloween season. It's just one of my favorite movies, so I've just been dying to talk about it forever.
All right, well, and we're going to do that today. We've got The Descent from 2005. The release dates were actually January 5th, 2005 in the UK, and then August 4th, 2006 in the USA. So I guess let's see, where do we want to start? We want to talk about what have we been doing? How long has it been, do we know, since our last episode? Was that March, maybe?
Yeah, we actually shockingly recorded an episode for Scream in March, the new Scream.
Yeah, so it's been a little bit of time since you've heard from us. So a little bit's been going on. And
a little bit. Just a little bit. And if we're all lucky, we're going to have quite a few episodes come out for October. I don't want to say quite a few, but we'll have a handful of episodes if everything goes well.
Yeah. A handful of carefully chosen little gems.
Yeah, we did carefully choose all of these episodes. So tell me, are you looking forward to anything? Because right now we are recording this early August, and many of us are itching for spooky season to start already, and the stores are already starting to have Halloween stuff. Are you looking forward to anything? What's going on in your world?
Yeah, so in my world, if you tuned into our original Scream episode, I was talking about launching my t-shirt store, which I have not done yet. So I am looking forward to that for this spooky season. There'll be lots of horror and Halloween-related shirts in the t-shirt store. It'll be called scaredycat.com. As far as decorating at my house, each year I try to pick a different theme. I'm not for sure yet what this year's theme will be, but I think it was 2 years ago, there was a very specific toy that I wanted. So I've kind of been on the hunt for that toy now. It's called Spooky Town. It's a line of stuff that they put out at Michael's. Mm-hmm. But it was a little tilt-a-whirl, the little carnival ride. Mm-hmm. But it was called Tilt and Hurl. Mm-hmm. So I've been on the hot pursuit of that. I've been out looking on eBay and everything, just trying to find it. But if I find it, then I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of build my theme around that, like carnivals and that kind of decor.
Okay.
How about you? Are you going to decorate?
Yes, I can't wait to decorate. I think I'm going to decorate more than I ever have before this year. So I've already got a few things, but yeah, once the things really start coming out, I'm going to hit all the stores and get all the decorations and probably start making some more like horror shadow boxes that I make sometimes. Mm-hmm. Right now I have some pumpkin spice oil in my oil diffuser. I just got my first oil diffuser. I guess that's what you call it, right?
Yeah.
My very first one, and it now smells like pumpkin spice in here to prepare for the episode. I can't wait. I can't wait for pumpkin spice lattes to start. In about 3.5 weeks, they're going to be starting. I know it's super basic, but hey, that's part of who I am. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm going to be drinking. So I am ready. I am ready to go. I'm already I just started watching Rob Zombie's Halloween Part 2 because I'm like, oh, I need a little bit of Halloween because I haven't seen that one yet. But yeah, I'm already starting to watch some Halloween movies, but I don't want to get too deep into it because I just want to, I want to save myself. I don't want to burn myself out. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm ready, and people around me are ready, and you're ready. And it's like so many people are ready for this to happen, and it's just early August right now.
I've been thinking about taking maybe a couple of road trips this year, just within the state, even for. I'm not really into haunted houses, but I know that there's different towns that have like special events and stuff. So I've been kind of poking around, looking at that stuff. I haven't had anything pop out, um, but it'd be cool. Like, it's maybe something Sasquatch related, maybe hit up Pennsylvania for something Mothman related, that type of stuff. Um, get out there into like the old cryptozoology world of it, as opposed to hitting up haunted houses. Um, and we actually have, where I live, just down the street, almost within walking distance from my house, is one of the best haunted houses in America. So I just don't have the nerve to go. And I think I'm just going to have to leave it at that.
Yeah, I do hope that I get to do some like spooky haunted houses and stuff this year. I would really love to go to Universal Studios Hollywood Halloween Horror Nights.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they always have it in Florida and California.
Mm-hmm.
I can never find anybody to go with me. It's a whole thing, so I probably won't get to go this year, but we'll see.
Yeah.
That's what I would really love to do. Every year.
Yeah.
Every year I just want to go to that. But it's been rough the last few years with a pandemic, and then we haven't really been able to do that in 2020 and 2021. It was like, anyway, whatever. But I do hope to get out there and actually start doing some physical, like haunted houses or mazes or just like Halloween stuff this year. Getting physical this year. Getting out there this year.
How do you feel about castles?
I don't feel anything about them. Why? I don't have thought about them.
There's a really interesting thing in Ohio. There's two castles, Macachee and Macacheek. They're side by side. It's in an area called LaFountain, Ohio, and they're from, I believe, I'm not for sure, but I believe they're from the late 1700s. So they're not super ancient, but it's pretty cool. I've been there a few times. It's pretty spooky, and I'm sure it is haunted. If anything is haunted, those castles are, because they give you the chills. Of course, it's not intended to be scary, but it just naturally is.
Well, I will keep you posted because, we're going to be recording these episodes over the next several weeks. So things are going to start opening up. And if I get to anything exciting, or if you do, we're going to have to talk about it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, what we can talk about for a moment is that you and I actually got to get together in real life. As crazy as that is.
Finally, we got to go see Le Tigre together with some friends, and it was
fun.
Great fun.
And we got to hit up the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
We did, which was also good. It's actually 50 years of hip hop this year, so they had like a whole exhibition as soon as you walk in with like DJ equipment, and I was like, this is so cool. I'm like behind the turntables.
It was cool.
Looking at all the records. Yeah.
And don't forget Trent Reznor hanging from the ceiling.
Oh, right. They had like a whole, what do you even call that? Of the Woodstock, was it 99 or was it 94 mud incident? And then all like next to that, they had Trent, like they had a version of him like covered in mud. And then they had another version of him hanging off the wall to mimic the Closer video.
Yeah.
And we didn't know. And we just look up and we see him hanging. And we're like,
that
oh
was
my God.
Spooky. Yeah, because he's life size. He's dirty. And I think both of those were made out of cement or, concrete. They looked very solid in a weird concrete kind of way. Which sounds kind of crazy that they would hang concrete from the ceiling. But yeah, I was pretty spooked out. I think you're like, look up. Like I didn't even see it.
Yeah.
But
I was really looking forward to seeing anything Kurt Cobain because I was like a huge Nirvana fan in the 90s as a teenager. And I got to see a couple of Kurt Cobain's guitars and some Nirvana and Kurt Cobain stuff. So I was super excited about that. It was great. Did you have like any like memorable things that you got to see?
I personally
favorites?
love the Jerry Lee Lewis piano. One of the first things we saw when we walked in, it was like not only was it really worn out, but to give everybody a visual, it was so worn out that you could see inside of the keys. Like half of the keys were missing from him just banging on this
Yeah, I was
piano.
gonna say, weren't they? Yeah, just like kind of beaten down. They looked like
Yeah,
they were
they're
shaved down.
yeah, they looked kind of like cut out like a spoon. Even they were kind of curved.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
But we could talk about that forever, and we could talk about Le Tigre forever, and
yeah,
hopefully we'll have another visit soon here.
yeah.
So we should probably get into the episode. We're here to talk about the episode, but we thought you might enjoy hearing a little bit about us since you have not heard from us in a very long time.
Yeah.
So, are you ready to get into this?
I'm ready if you're ready.
Yeah, I am. So, as you said, it came out in 2005 in the UK, and now
Yeah.
I believe you're going to tell us a plot summary.
1 year following a profound emotional trauma, Sarah, portrayed by Shauna McDonald, embarks on a journey to North Carolina with her female companions to delve into claustrophobic cave exploration. As they venture beneath the surface, the group discovers enigmatic cave paintings and signs of a prior expedition. Soon, they realize they are not the sole occupants. Lurking within the crevices are subterranean predators with an appetite for human flesh. So this movie was directed by Neil Marshall. Cinematography was Sam McCurdy, and it was also written by Neil Marshall.
So, Neil Marshall, I want to say he also had a popular movie called Dog Soldiers from 2002 that I hear is very good, but I haven't watched it yet. Just throwing that
Yeah,
out there,
same.
Dog Soldiers. All right, carry on.
Okay, so our cast, we have Juno, played by Natalie Mendoza, Sarah, played by Shauna McDonald, Sam, played by Mayanna Buring, Beth, played by Alex Reed, Holly, played by Nora Jane Noon, Rebecca, played by Saskia Mulder, and Paul was played by Oliver Milburn. And the child, also at the beginning, was Jessica, played by Molly Cale.
All right, so we're going to get into a little bit of pop culture to talk about what it was like in 2005. So I'm going to throw out a few things here, and Ketchum's going to throw out a few things, and we're going to try to not keep it too long because it's easy to talk about pop culture for like an hour. Anyway, I thought it was interesting that I found out that in the video game The World of Warcraft that there was a glitch. I remember this happening, but I didn't play World of Warcraft, but there was a glitch that allowed a plague to spread in the game, leading non-infected players to abandon cities while those that were infected were forced into quarantines. And the interesting thing about it is that this whole event was studied later by epidemiologists to see how real-life people would react to a pandemic. And then we had a pandemic.
And I want to add on something I was reading about 2005 was that they actually went back and they took a strain of the flu of 1918 and they manipulated it and they worked with it because they were trying to see if they could recreate it, which they did, to determine that it was actually a bird flu. And there was a remark in this article that I was reading. The article itself was from 2005, but there was a remark about how dangerous this was if it, got back out into the world. So that's kind of a little too close from home when you take that and the World of Warcraft glitch, since we now have experienced a pandemic of our lifetime.
Yeah.
So it's pretty odd.
Yeah. So to get into some lighter stuff, The Office premiered this year. It did not have good ratings, but they decided to renew it for a second season due to the success of The 40-Year-Old Virgin. Christmas gifts this year. Some notable Christmas gifts. The Xbox 360 came out. That was huge. There was a PlayStation Portable, a Game Boy Micro. We had a few pop culture dolls, including Lindsay Lohan. Everybody scream like on Pee Wee Herman when you say the magic word and then everybody
Right.
screams.
Right. In case you are a new listener, we always seem to mention Lindsay Lohan. It just happens.
Every episode, somehow she comes up. So there was a Lindsay Lohan doll. We checked it out. It was terrible looking. It doesn't look anything like her.
Yeah.
There was also a Hilary Duff doll, a Raven Simone doll. It's yeah, we didn't check those out though. But YouTube was founded this year. MySpace started to grow in popularity. I know that I got a MySpace account in 2005. I put my music up.
Me too.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
For true crime fans, 2005 is the year that Dennis Rader, the BTK serial killer, was caught and arrested and charged with 10 counts of murder. So that's insane after, he was killing for since like the 70s. So he was getting away with it for like 35 years, 30 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, meanwhile, over in Oregon, they started granting licenses for same-sex marriages, which I thought was pretty exciting. I feel like I heard about that at some shows where there were some bands that I saw perform and like they were couples, like a lesbian couple, and was talking about it, and it just seemed so foreign to me in 2005 because that's when I was living in Ohio. And they're like, oh, over in Oregon, we can get married. And it was like, oh, that's a different world. Anyway, I'm going to throw it over to you now, Ketchum. What do you got for us?
All right. Okay, well, the top song of the year was We Belong Together by Mariah Carey. And some of the big movies were Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, and Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire.
As far as songs, I do want to throw out there that a couple of other really popular songs, we had Drop It Like It's Hot by Snoop.
Mm-hmm.
We had Hollaback Girl by Gwen Stefani. We had Gold Digger by Kanye West. That was all happening. All right, carry on.
I had a note on YouTube, which was that it was founded that year, but it was bought 1 year later by Google for $1.65 billion in stock, which is kind of interesting. George W. Bush was in his second term. Disneyland Resort turned 50. Michael Jackson was found not guilty of child molestation charges. The top-selling young adult book was Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. Mark Zuckerberg tried to sell Facebook to MySpace for $75 million and was rejected. Ashton Kutcher married Demi Moore. Brad Pitt left Jennifer Aniston for Angelina Jolie. And, you couldn't get away from either of those on the tabloids and the checkout lines. And Lindsay Lohan, because I also have to make a note, she released her gold certified album called A Little More Personal Raw. And the best song, I think, on that album was actually a cover song of Cheap Trick's I Want You to Want Me. And my side note was that this came out just 1 year after Mean Girls. So that was kind of the time of Lindsay Lohan.
But also we have some television shows. Do you have any of those? No? Okay, so I got a few here. So like some of the biggest television shows in 2005 were American Idol, Desperate Housewives, Grey's Anatomy, House, the medical show Dr. House, and Survivor. Do you have anything else?
No, the only one I watched out of those was Idol.
Really?
And and I don't really think I was watching it then. I think I watched Idol the couple years before that. But yeah, I've never seen the other ones.
I used to be really into House at the time. And the first season of Desperate Housewives. Which I would kind of like to revisit it because it seems like it might be really campy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably so.
All right, so to move on to the history of the making of this movie.
Yeah, so this movie was shot entirely in the UK. The exterior scenes were shot in Scotland. The interior scenes were in sets near London. And they used a man-made cave because it was too dangerous and time-consuming to film in an actual cave.
Mm-hmm.
They were inspired by films by Dario Argento and Lucio Fulci. And the tension influence came from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Thing, and Deliverance.
So, I have a few notes here as well. So they did consider this to be a box office success. It grossed $57 million. It is often regarded as one of the best horror films of the 2000s. I guess we'll get into that with Ketchum a little bit here. I do agree with that. She may not agree with that, but we'll get into that. This movie was originally supposed to be a mixed cast of male and female, but they thought about it and they were like, they rarely have an all-female cast, so let's just go ahead and do that to avoid making this like a cliched film. So they cast all women. So we've got 6 women. To avoid making them cliched, he got advice from his female friends about it. And he also, which I don't know if this really helps, but he gave all of the characters different accents to help the audience to tell them apart. I mean, I could tell them apart, but I can't remember any of their names. It's like I remember like maybe 2 of their names, like Juno and Sarah, and the rest I'm just like, what are their names again?
I'd read something interesting, and I was going to go back and check, but I didn't. I wonder if this stood out to you. I read that their accents actually changed
Oh,
to
really?
American accents once they were inside the cave.
Did it? I didn't notice that.
I didn't either, but I read something that was done on purpose.
Why?
That once they were in North Carolina, so to speak, that they changed their accents for that area. I don't know. I was going to go back and double check it, but I thought that was an interesting little factoid. There might be some truth in it if anyone wants to check it out and let us know. Um, yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
So, the marketing for The Descent, it focused on creating a sense of anticipation, emphasizing the film's unique setting and atmosphere, and tapping into the horror genre's dedicated fan base. This multifaceted approach helped to generate interest and draw audiences to the theaters. It premiered at various film festivals, such as the Edinburgh International Film Festival and the Sundance Film Festival. These appearances generated buzz and early reviews, which helped them build anticipation for a future wider release.
Yeah, I also read that the marketing campaign was disrupted by the London bombings. And so they had
Yes.
like certain advertisements on the public transportation system. And so they had to change all of that because it was I guess that the advertising was like a woman screaming into a tunnel. Yeah, they just had to rework all of that. Yeah, so they had to rework all of that um, because people were still trapped underground in reality. So anyway, it was the whole thing they had to change. Um, so the poster. So this poster, I really like this poster. I did not know that this was actually based on something that actually exists. Which is it is based off of a collaboration between, I don't know how to say his name. Is it Philip Halsman, Felipe Halsman? I don't know about the accents here, but Philip Halsman, I'll say, and Salvador Dali. They did a collaboration called, which again I don't know how to say this, but they did a collaboration in Voluptas Mors, which is a surrealistic portrait of Dali beside a tableau vivant, which I was like, okay, what is this? This is a silent and motionless group of people arranged to represent a scene or incident. So this was a surrealistic portrait of 7 nude women posed to look like a large skull. And Halsman took 3 hours to arrange the models according to a sketch by Dali. And various reenactments and allusions to this have appeared over the years, like the Descent poster, but more famously, this, you can see that image in The Silence of the Lambs, which I always saw, you know, like if you look at the moth, you see the skull face. I never looked too closely, but if you really look close, you can see that it's the 7 women posed to look like a skull, and that's just wild. But yeah, that exists, so look for that. So that's all I have for the marketing and everything like that. So I think we can move, or do you have
Well,
more?
I was just going to say the original, the Salvador Dali, the name stands for voluptuous death. I'm just wondering how that connects with Silence of the Lambs and the Descent. Like, what is the voluptuous death? Unless it's just the imagery and they're not really connecting it to the name.
Yeah, we'll have to look that up. Or again, as you said before, if somebody knows, let us know.
Yeah. Anytime we are talking, if there's anything that you want to inform us about, please reach out and tell us. We love the interaction.
All right, so to get into the next part here, if we talk about how we discovered this movie, we know how Ketchum discovered it is because of me wanting to do this podcast.
That's not
Oh,
true.
it's not true? Okay, tell me.
No,
Okay, fine, go
I
ahead.
remember I remember the TV commercials.
What? Really?
Yeah, in 2005 or
Oh my
2006.
god.
Yeah, cuz I had just moved across town. So there's lots of, personal markers in life, right? So yes, I remember very well being in the house that I moved to in 2006, and seeing those commercials. And I had no desire to see it because of claustrophobia. Like when I saw it, I was like, that's not for me. So I've always known it's out there. I just had never watched it.
Yeah, Ketchum has some things she doesn't like to see in horror movies, like cold stuff like snow.
Yeah, cold is probably the worst for me,
Is underwater
and
a thing or
and water. Yeah, the underwater stuff. And I think the underwater stuff gets to me because you know that whatever the paranormal thing is, or whatever the big bad is, that they can move faster than you. So I think
Mhm.
that's why the water really bothers me. It's like they're never going to survive.
Well, I discovered this because 2017 is my marker year of this. That was the year where I said, all right, I'm going to get into horror and I'm going to watch every horror movie ever that sounds interesting to me, which I am still doing. And that was one of the top movies that was recommended to me, or that I saw recommended on like forums and chats and stuff like that. So that's just one of those movies that I watched first at that time, and I really liked it. It came very highly recommended. So, as we said before, this movie is regarded as one of the best horror films of the 2000s. So, Ketchum, what did you think of this movie? I mean, you know that I love it. I was blown away when I saw it for the first time. I revisit it regularly. I've seen it a ton of times. I recommend it to everyone. Go ahead, Ketchum.
How much do you want me to hold back here? Yeah, I didn't like this movie, so I'll try to be nice. It was very problematic to me in many ways. And I mean, there were a couple scenes I may have enjoyed, but overall, yeah, this was just not the movie for me. And I find it interesting though now that you're telling us that this is one of the first movies you watched when you started diving into your kick of watching all the horror, because I'm wondering if that plays into how you view the movie versus how I view the movie. Like maybe that was like a really exciting time
Mm.
and you were like really looking forward to it. And because when I went into this movie, I totally went in with an open mind for sure.
Yeah, and
Especially
I told you to not read anything about it because we don't
right,
you don't want to know about the monsters going in because you
right,
think it's going to
yeah,
be a cave movie only.
exactly. And I did, yeah. I thought it was going to be like a trapped in a cave movie. Um, but yeah, it's like the only thing I really knew about it was that I kept seeing it pop up on list as a top horror movie, right? So I went in with a totally open mind. Um, Yeah, so I went into this with an open mind, but I immediately did not like the story. I did not like the opening. I mean, I still am thinking about it. Like, what? Why? Why did we have this opening where it didn't, I don't know. I was expecting more to happen. I felt like it was just poorly written. I didn't like it. And I have nothing good to say about it.
Oh
I don't
my
want to
god.
trash it because I know you like it. But yeah, to me, it's very simple. It's very basic. I was not scared. I was wanting something more to happen. I felt it was very predictable. Like it was just rubbing me in all the wrong ways.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean I like it. Yeah, I mean I really liked the opening. I read from the direct like I read I think it was like an interview with the director where he said that he was opening it up with them whitewater rafting because he wanted to show them like as a team that they're strong as a team, that they can like
Mm-hmm.
accomplish something hard. That he originally wanted them to skydive, but he also wanted to make it like a little bit messy. So he made them whitewater raft, and
Mm-hmm.
that's just to show their strength as a team. And then yeah, I mean I liked the opening because then Sarah, our main character, she gets in the car with her husband and her daughter, and they're driving, and I believe the husband is driving, right? And he isn't paying attention, and then they just get
Impaled.
They just get impaled and they're just instantly gone. The husband and the daughter, and I was very shocked, and I just thought that was like very unexpected, and I think that all
Mm-hmm.
happens within like 3 to 5 minutes. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, I thought that was a great movie opening. Like that really caught my attention, and I just gasp every time that I see it. Like it's almost like I forget that it's gonna happen, and then I just gasp every time at the
See,
brutality of it all.
it's like I liked that too, like how fast paced that was for something like that to happen. But I feel like it went nowhere. Like the next scene, we're in the hospital, post this accident, and her friend is telling her that they've died. But then immediately we jump right into our movie, and I just felt like they could have done something more with that. I didn't quite understand because even throughout the movie, I mean, I guess overall we're supposed to see her as strong. She has survived this trauma. She's now going to take this adventure, and she's going to have a new survival thing on her hands. And we're shown, probably that she's strong, but also what has she become since her trauma. But I don't know. I just felt like there was a lot missing, that they should have written it out more,
So you would
fleshed it
you would have
out.
liked to see her year of grief, or some part of
Well,
her grief.
well, they like never even really mention it. It's like we know it happened because we saw it happen.
Yeah, I mean, her friends
But
are all like tiptoeing around it. Nobody says anything. They're
yeah,
just like, "Oh, how you doing?" But they don't like reference like, what is it that we're asking you about
right,
specifically. It's like everybody's
right,
just tiptoeing around it.
and I probably would have liked a little bit of a mental background too, like when she was in the hospital. Maybe they could have tied in that she was having like a mental breakdown from it to try to help us, you know, have a better picture of this character. I just felt like I didn't know any of the characters throughout the movie. Like I didn't get attached to them. I
That's
I didn't know
interesting.
their backstories. I just didn't feel connected.
Yeah,
But
we don't.
if they
Yeah,
would have if they would have let us in with she's got some mental problems now because this was so traumatic, then that probably would have made it a lot more intense for me as she battled her new problems in the cave,
yeah,
because she had a different perspective than they did, perhaps.
we don't. I don't. Yeah, we don't get much background on these other characters really. We do see them hanging out in a cabin. We do kind of get like a sense of their relationship with each other. So they
Hmm.
kind of like show that and how they get along and everything. But
Yeah, I want to know. They say that Holly is a protege of Beth. What is she a protege of? Did you ever figure
caving?
that
Is it
out?
caving? Maybe? I don't know.
I don't know. They introduce her and they're like, she's a protege of her. And
I would guess caving. And I have a question. Is like, because these women are all supposed to be from different countries, is
hmm
how in 2005 did they meet to come together to create, like, form this tight bond of caving?
yeah,
Like, how did that happen? I would like to know
yeah,
some background on that. I have
yeah.
to say.
When they were whitewater rafting, it would have helped if they would have tossed out some lines like, what are we doing next year on our get together? Like maybe
Yeah.
once a year they're doing some big thing. Maybe they could have tied that together for us better.
Yeah, but you would think they would hang out more to develop trust, as a group,
Hmm.
or like to better learn how to like work together.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we need a prequel.
Right.
But no, I mean, I like it. I don't think that I have to know about their backgrounds. I like it. I like it all. So
So, what was the impact of this movie on our culture, people? How did people respond to this? They found the claustrophobia riveting, and overall, it had generally favorable reviews. The first weekend, it grossed 8.8 million in the United States alone. So, this film is often praised for its intense and claustrophobic atmosphere, strong performances, effective use of tension and scare. And many of the viewers and critics found that the movie, they thought that it stood out in the horror genre for its unique setting and the way that it blended psychology with physical terror. And then we could say, that its success can be seen in the box office by,
mhm.
how much it grossed. Um, and that it has had a lasting impact on horror genres. I think just a horror genre, just 3 nights ago, I think it was, I sent you a picture from something where people were talking about it just 3 nights ago.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it comes up often when people are talking about horror movies.
Yeah. So apparently, though, a lot of viewers found that it was too intense and that the graphic nature was unsettling. I read that it was actually kind of edited for different regions and stuff. That parts of it were taken out as a type of censorship because it was too graphic.
Really?
Yeah. And as far as the negative opinions, a lot of people say that they cannot connect with the characters. So that seems to be an ongoing issue. The one I have, that there's just a little something missing. We need a little bit more to get connected to the characters. But overall, it is widely regarded as a well-crafted, effective horror film. It has left a lasting impression on audiences.
All right. Do you have a favorite character in this movie that you just didn't really like? Because I could tell you mine, which, I want to say that I really like Juno, despite the fact that, I guess we could say up until the fact that she kind of becomes the villain, in quotation marks, because...
The villain for 2 seconds.
Well, she was having an affair with Sarah's husband, so in that way.
Right.
And then also she left someone to die, basically, in the cave.
Right.
But, leading up to that, I like her because she just seems, like, cool and strong, and she just seems like she's got it together, but, like, really she doesn't. And she took these people into an uncharted cave without any kind of extra precautions in case of an emergency. She's just like, hey, guys, we're going to go to this unexplored territory, and...
name it.
And we're going to name it, and if we find ourselves in case of an emergency... Didn't think about that. Didn't think ahead to that, despite the fact that we've been doing this for years.
Yeah, as I said, I didn't care for any of them, but I would choose Juno as well.
Yeah, that whole, like, upper body, like, when she was climbing across, or, like, I don't even know what you would call the official wording of what she was doing, to get to the other side.
Yeah, I think that was probably the best part of the movie for me. That was the tension.
Yeah, I love
and
that.
Also the scene where they first start crawling through that little tiny claustrophobic path.
Yeah, that's great.
That then collapsed. Yeah, that was the only true part for me. Like when I watched that little claustrophobic scene, that was the only part that really was kind of unsettling for me. Yeah. The rest of the movie, it didn't get me. But that did.
No, yeah,
and probably because it was realistic, that could happen.
Yeah, I love that part. Like you referred to it as like 127 hours.
Yeah.
Like you were hoping to get that out of this movie, just that.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was thinking was going to happen.
That's what I was thinking too. That's what we all thought.
That's what I was prepared for.
And then the monsters appear. And you either like it or you don't.
Well, let's go ahead and jump to that monster. That monster, they were called the crawlers.
Yeah, the crawlers.
And what did you think about them as far as their appearance? What did they remind you of? Or what did they creep you out? How did you feel about them?
So that's the only, like, con about this movie is their appearance. So the first time that I watched this movie, I wasn't expecting monsters. And then when they showed up and I thought they looked bad, to be honest. I thought that they just didn't look so... I just didn't think they looked good or, like, very convincing. I thought they looked kind of cheesy. But I said, okay, I'm just going to roll with this. And I'm just going to let this movie wash over me. And I'm going to accept that we now have monsters. I'm going to look past the fact that I think they look a little bit cheesy. And then I just got over it. And I just really... liked it. I just was like, okay, whatever. This is about these monsters, and I love Buffy. The monsters in Buffy look pretty cheesy all the time, and that doesn't matter. They don't have to look, 100% realistic or whatever. It doesn't matter. So I just got past that really fast. But yeah, they're referred to as humanoids, like cavemen who just ended up staying underground and they never really evolved. And so, when I watched it this time, it kind of made me think of Barbarian, which Barbarian
Mm-hmm.
spoilers. Maybe we don't want to talk too much, but I kind of got a feeling that Barbarian and The Descent would be a good double feature because it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like this underground. We've got like these humanoid. I don't want to say that Barbarian has like a humanoid, but if you've seen it, you've seen it. You know what I'm talking about. We've got these similar situations happening underground in a kind of way. And I was like, this would be a great double feature for people who love both movies.
Right.
But what did you think of them?
Well, my first viewing of the crawler was Turok Khan, if you recall. That's the last episode of Buffy, where that's what's underneath the ground, right? There's hundreds or thousands of the Turok Khan. And that was what I saw. That's all I could see. I couldn't stop seeing it. It doesn't really look like them, but just the idea of the cave and like all these creatures coming out. It's not just one, there's more. So I'm just like, oh man, this is just straight out of the very last episode of Buffy. And then, of course, my brain jumps over to Gollum, who is probably the most famous, cave
Yeah.
dweller. And what I found interesting was, Gollum has those big bulging eyes, and I'm like, well, this thing doesn't have those. But when I was
Hmm.
reading it, they said they were going to give it big bulging eyes.
No, I read
I
that they
thought, are you
did.
kidding me?
I read that they said that they based these creatures off of Nosferatu, and that they
Hmm.
originally had given them the big bulging eyes, and they thought it looked silly, so they took that part away.
Well, I just thought, yeah, give them the big bulging eyes, and then we just have golems. Like it's just not an original character at all. This creature in the cave is not an original character. I'm sorry, and that's my problem with
I
it.
don't have a problem with it not looking original.
And I mean, as far as Nosferatu, I mean, I mentioned this to you before. It's like Nosferatu is a man. Nosferatu wears a suit. So I don't really know. I think they were trying to make it look like Gollum, but they didn't want to say it because it's a little too close to Gollum. I mean, that would have been just a couple of years after those movies came out, the Lord of
Hmm.
the Rings movies. Um, but, I think I just was disinterested in the creature because my brain already thought that we were not going to have a creature.
Hmm.
So when it pops out, I'm just like, wait, what? What's going on? Really?
Yeah.
But okay, so its rules are basically you enter its space and you die because this is an unexplored part of this cave.
Yeah, I mean, we also have to say about these crawlers is that they can't see. They don't
Mm-hmm.
have any eyesight. They have amazing hearing and smell, so they can function great in the dark. And they're expert climbers,
Right.
so they're just like experts in this world. Like you said, if you enter their space, then you die.
Right. And since they're nocturnal, I mean they know their space better than anybody's going to know their space. We see it one scene of it like, crawling on the ceiling, like what who can do that, So it's basically what I read was that they also kind of based it off of rats and bats and just kind of watching creatures inside of caves and how they act.
Mm-hmm.
So, once you see this thing, you know that they're not going to get away from it
Mm-hmm.
because it knows its space better than they do.
Yeah.
And it's going to be able to, do whatever it wants to do.
Yeah.
Um,
But I mean, if you watch there's some bloopers on YouTube, like in behind the scenes. It's like a 5 minute clip. You
mm-hmm.
can see the actor, like one of the actors playing one of these crawlers, just dancing in front of a green screen. It's ridiculous. He's dancing with like a mop or something, and it's just the silhouette of the monster dancing with a
Mm-hmm.
mop. If you want some fun in the bloopers.
Yeah. Yeah. So I read that there was some prosthetics, but it was mostly actors.
Yeah, it almost looked like they didn't do anything to any part of their body really except their faces. Like they look
Mm-hmm.
like humans except for their faces.
Yeah.
But I did read that they were hidden from the actresses until they actually saw
Mm-hmm.
them in the scenes.
Right.
The cave is also kind of a monster if you want to dive into any cave thoughts that you might have.
Well, we had a bit of foreshadowing, right? When they first got there, before they went down into the cave, there was a dead animal. And, that was our foreshadowing that something was going to eat them. And I have wondered since, did the crawler come out of the cave? Were they coming out of the cave and killing animals up on top as well? Um,
Or were they
but I don't
just bring?
know.
I mean, we know that they brought them down and ate them,
Right,
but did they
right,
eat them out there? I don't know.
right. Because yeah, we find in this movie that there's like a whole pile of bones and you know perhaps other people who have attempted an expedition. Um, and then we also have the pool of blood that she falls into,
Mm-hmm.
um, which I found absolutely ridiculous.
Really, that's one of my
Because
favorite scenes. I love
how
that
where
scene.
where is the blood coming from? That is why it's ridiculous. How could there be that much blood that they have not consumed already through their diet? That was the problem for me. Unless it's not all blood.
I
Maybe
didn't
there's
think it
water
was
that
all
comes
blood. I
in.
thought it was very bloody water
Yeah.
and some red lighting.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, what about your theory about the cave, or like your comparison of the cave to what was it? You were saying something about descending into a womb and then like the rebirth at the end. Do you want to talk about
Yeah.
that?
Well, I mean, historically, there's a ton of cultural stuff, that has happened over thousands of years now, where different cultures and different mythology and folklore, they believe that the cave in the earth is the womb of the earth, and so different culture groups and subgroups, they've put this in their stories. This goes way back. One of my favorite tales is Pythia, the high priestess of the Temple of Apollo at Delphi, where basically people believe that she was channeling prophecies from Apollo himself, because she would go into this dreamlike state. So she lived in a cave, the Pythia. That's not her real name. Different women were called Pythia. I think they actually had up to 3 Pythias at one time. Um, but anyhow, this is a pagan sanctuary. And yeah, so she would go into this dreamlike state. She would rock back and forth and she would predict the future and all this stuff. That's why they were coming to see her. But the little twist with that story and why I find it so interesting is that her cave was actually on a type of fault line or something. And there was a gas that was seeping into her cave from the earth. And that was most likely what was making her pass out. So, she would get into these prophecies very deeply and then she might just pass out. And so people really believe that she was channeling Apollo. But that's just one instance from, history. That's from the Greek history of women in caves were viewed as prophets, or, that they were mystics and sages. But like we had it in there's Celtic folklore around it, Native American, Hindu, Chinese, Greek. It's like everywhere there are stories about women who inhabited caves. And what I find also interesting, which I don't know if it really plays into this at all, since these are younger women, but a lot of these mythological stories and folklore are around women who have gone through menopause, that they believe, back then at least, that once you go through that you are now the wisest woman. So because you're now the wisest woman, you live in the cave. So that's why, and then people come to you for your wisdom. But that's why in these stories, it's always like the old woman, the witch, these old creepy women that live in these caves. Well, it's really because they were viewed as these respected elders that were full of wisdom, because they had already completed, childbirth and raising their family and so forth. So in our movie, when I see them, when they first plummet down into that cave, it's like that's a huge opening,
Mm-hmm.
right? That they're going into. And then, we see throughout this cave, like the blood, we have the blood in the pool. And then by the end of it, everything's very bloody. It's a whole bloody mess. And it just kind of keeps tying you into like this womb thing, right? But it all tied together in my head when she actually comes out of the cave. And it's like she's being reborn. It's a rebirth because we know that that character in particular is the one who starts with all that trauma. You know, so she has like made it through all of these challenges, and now she's being reborn. And there's also that sense of complete fear and a type of hysteria, just like in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you know, where she comes running out of it.
Yeah.
So to me, that's what I was seeing was, we have an all female cast, and you know, that there's a little bit of a deeper story here, perhaps, of that cave was her rebirth.
Yeah. Very interesting, Ketchum. So let's jump into some themes. So I believe Ketchum has some information about some themes here.
Yeah, so, you know, a primary theme, of course, is survival. That's one of the central themes. They experience extreme challenges in that treacherous cave, but also the predatory creature that's lurking in that cave. So we have a theme of survival, and like, you know, surviving against the odds becomes like a major force of the plot. We have a theme of isolation. So, you know, they find themselves deep in this uncharted cave, cut off from the outside world, and that isolation just intensifies as they become more and more vulnerable, right? It adds more tension in this isolation. We have a theme of fear and paranoia. So as this claustrophobia grows and the dangers grow, we can feel the characters changing a bit in their fear, and paranoia starts to take over, because there's darkness, there's unknown threats, there's like a gradual breakdown of trust amongst them, and so it creates this type of atmosphere where, like it's more of like an intense psychological kind of tension. It's, you know, like a type of paranoia. Then we've got grief and trauma. So Sarah, as we've already discussed, she's dealing with emotional trauma from the past, from that tragedy. So, you know, to her, you know, the cave expedition is like a type of escape, probably, you know, for healing. But it also then becomes a setting where her emotional turmoil kind of intersects with, you know, what are the physical dangers? And, you know, it's kind of like there's a reflection of confronting one's own inner demons, you know. Another theme is friendship and betrayal. So the relationships, you know, we didn't get a lot of backstory, so we don't know how tight they are, but we're kind of led to believe that these are, you know, tight friendships, that they can trust each other on these type of journeys. So they're tested, you know, that there's challenges, you know, that are going to come up and test their friendship. So the dynamics of this friendship, it's explored through, you know, life-threatening situations. You know, they reveal their loyalty to one another. But then also there's vulnerability and betrayal. Another theme is empowerment. So as they face adversity and fight for their lives, they have to tap into their inner strengths and be resourceful. So, you know, we kind of see an evolution of the characters as they move from vulnerability to empowerment, you know, as they adapt to the new circumstances, as they keep changing, so they can try to take control of their destiny. And then we've got two more. We've got nature's brutality. So the cave itself and that predator, you know, that emphasizes the harshness and the brutality of nature. You know, that nature can be very brutal. And then we've got gender roles and femininity. So we've got our all-female cast. There's challenging traditional gender roles and the expectations of those gender roles. And then the character's resilience and ability to confront danger, subvert stereotypes, and showcase the complexity of female characters in a horror setting.
Okay, so if we jump into the queer aspect, I've heard different people talk about this having like some lesbian undertones, or like you might think that one or two of them are lesbian. Do you feel like you felt that at all? Your
No.
eyebrows are going up. You're like, no, not at all.
Nope. No.
I did. I got
what
that
do we
vibe.
call that? no, I'm dating myself. Gaydar. No gaydar.
Really?
No gaydar went off in this movie for
Not
me.
even the
No.
spiky blonde hair of 2005.
Well, I mean, okay, that's stereotypical, but it was 2005 and she's from the UK. So,
She's
I
European. Are you
yeah, so
gay or
it,
are you European? That's what I used to say in
right.
those days, way back, like 15 years ago.
But I did question when she said she was best protege. I was like, "Oh, is this some type of secret language?"
If somebody wants to
But
get deeper on
no.
the lesbian undertones, let us
Yeah,
know.
tell us what you have to say, what you think. But yeah, I didn't feel that way about this movie at all.
All right, do you have anything about the cinematography for us?
Oh yeah, I have something for the cinematography as well. Um, so the cinematography, it plays a really crucial role in creating this intense immersive experience that they're trying, so hard to create for us. So to me, the cinematography and the audio, the music is really what carries most films, right? So in this, for our cinematography, we've got our nice cave environment. It's dark, it's treacherous, it's challenging. There's opportunities in it, and the lighting techniques that they use in the cave environment. I noticed that right when we have our first scene of fear, when she's stuck. I noticed that was a bright lit scene, and I thought that was interesting because to me that symbolized that they were still at the beginning of their journey,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like things get darker the deeper they go in. Um, we have handheld cameras, right? There are a few handheld camera scenes where they're using the night vision, right?
Yeah.
So they create some cinematography through that so they can actually see where the creature is and what's going on. We see the camera shake a little in their hands, so we can feel their chaos in that type of scene. We had tight framing and close-ups. So they were doing that especially during those moments of suspense and terror. We have limited visibility scenes, which adds to the tension. We have dynamic camera angles. The color palette that they chose, helped create that mood and atmosphere. The dim lighting, the earthy tones, the cave environment itself, it's like gritty and very aesthetic. And then the transition of tone. So as they progress and the situation becomes more dire, we see the cinematography also transition with the natural lighting in the cave entrance to the scenes that were almost entirely reliant on their artificial light. They have their glow sticks and stuff deep in the cave. So you could say that type of transition mirrored their descent into darkness and danger. That the lighting changed as they changed.
Yeah. How about the music, Ketchum? Do you have anything for us on the music? Ketchum is very
Yeah.
thoroughly prepared.
Okay, yeah. So the music in The Descent contributed significantly to the film's atmosphere and storytelling, right? It enhances your sense of dread, uncertainty, claustrophobia. It amplified the impact of the visual and the narrative elements. It's very minimalist. It's an ambient type of approach of the score. So you could say it played a crucial role in making this film memorable, or even chilling at times. So the film score was composed by David Julian, who worked closely with the director Neil Marshall to create a soundtrack that complemented the intense and claustrophobic nature of the story. So some of the characteristics of the music in this film were they took a minimalist approach, so lots of things that were sparse or subtle instrumentation to build the tension.
Yeah, I think to touch on that a little bit, that it's important to sometimes not have sound. So I believe in
Mm-hmm.
this, there are times, there's movies where they want to give you music to let you know that something is about to happen. And there are moments in this movie where they don't give you that. It's just silence and then something happens. And you don't have that
Right.
music building to let you know, oh, something's about to happen.
Right. Yeah. So their approach that minimalist approach was to make it feel like it was blending.
Mm-hmm.
Like what you're saying, that the atmosphere carried itself, the cave carries itself. So it's a very, very minimal, blending, seamless type of thing that's happening. It also is ambient and atmospheric. So there's some soundscapes that come and go to just add to that sense of unease, like droning tones or like an unsettling texture, maybe some subtle electronic elements. And then there's building tension. So, strategically, they would build tension with the music to help you anticipate the suspense. They use pulsating rhythms. And, there was a scene, I don't remember exactly where it was, but I remember it was like a heartbeat. It was kind of like they were mirroring the character's heartbeat to help raise, that moment of fear. They used the music to create isolation and loneliness, like with the eerie tones or distant echoes. And, the last note I have here is the emotional resonance. So while the music primarily focused on creating tension and fear, there were moments where it conveyed emotional depth too. So these moments allowed the audience to connect with the characters on a deeper level, like in the scenes involving their own personal struggles or, the betrayal as they start to crumble apart.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's talk about the ending. I have some stuff to say about the ending. Okay, are you ready for this?
Yeah, let's hear it.
So, which did you watch the original ending or did you watch the
Yeah, I watched the UK ending.
Okay, so we have two endings for this movie. We have the sad ending, I guess, that tells us that she's trapped where it seems like it's a dream. Where it is a dream. And then we have the American version, which they cut to make it happier. So basically what happens is she gets out of the cave, she gets into the car or oh my god, what is the thing that
it's a Jeep or a Bronco.
She gets into some kind of like a Jeep, something like that. Anyway, she's driving away and she escapes basically, right? And with the American version, that's where it ends. But in the original version, there's an extra minute where she actually wakes up in the cave and she realizes that was all just a dream. She didn't actually escape. And she sees her daughter and there's a birthday cake. And we realize that she's still trapped and then the movie ends. So that's the original ending. So they didn't do like a whole lot. They didn't like they just chopped off that last part for America to make it seem like she got away. That's it. So they thought that it's like when they showed it to a US audience, they thought it was too depressing, so that's why they did that. But the director prefers the original UK cut. I mean, I think I do too. I think I prefer the original. That the grim. My movies don't have to have like a happier ending. They can be grim. I like to see a grim ending sometimes because we see too many happy endings, I guess.
Well, here's what they say about that. That they say that movies are not as memorable if you're not happy with the ending. So if you like a grim ending and you're happy with it, then that's cool. But they say that oftentimes if we don't feel good in the resolution, that we don't remember the movie because we're upset because we just spent 2 hours watching it, right? For me, as far as these endings, I would prefer the American ending of her getting out. But my thing was, I told you this before, I thought we were going to slide into like a Rob Zombie movie, which I didn't want to happen, which is, she gets out, everything looks cool, like she's really going to escape. And then, something awful happens down the road, like a wreck or, something bad happens. So I didn't want that to happen either. I kind of just wanted her to drive off into the sunset. Like that was her rebirth, because I felt that was a rebirth, like, oh, okay, she survived. She's the only survivor. I guess Juno doesn't survive. And now she can live her life. So I didn't like us then flashing back and she was actually having a dream and she's trapped inside this place.
So I like what the director said about the ending, where he said about the American version. He says, just because she gets away, does that really make it a happy ending? Like five of
Right.
her friends are dead. Her husband is dead. Her daughter is still dead. And now she's just alone and experiencing even more grief. So is that really a happy ending?
Right. But is it really happier for her to be eaten by a creature in a cave? So when she's in the cave and her daughter appears with the birthday cake, and then they pan back and we see it's not a birthday cake. We see it's her torch, her survival torch, right? Um, yeah, I just felt like, wait, what? Because I felt so disconnected from the opening of the movie with her daughter and husband dying that when the daughter appears, I'm like, who is that? Not really, but I just felt so disconnected from that storyline. Um, so yeah, I was not happy with the ending. That could have been the redeeming place for me,
Mm-hmm.
since I wasn't happy with the movie. That would have been the redeeming spot for me, but I was just, yeah. Because, I mean, I think even in that scene, don't we see the crawler like coming towards her as it pans out?
I can't remember.
I mean, because it was very Final Girl of her to stab Juno and leave her for dead and then escape. And, like that was a good Final Girl scene.
Mm-hmm.
So they took that from me. They took it from me, and now I'm sad. I wanted her to be a Final Girl.
Well, there is a part two.
She survives, right?
Yeah, that's the thing that I don't understand because, yeah, she
Yeah.
survived. She's in part two. And I'm not going to give you. I haven't seen part two. I will, but I've just heard things about it. And so, like, for whatever reason, she goes back down into the cave. So, yeah, she survives, which doesn't make any
Ah,
sense as far as the original ending because she doesn't make it out alive in the original ending.
right,
So part two is not based off of the original ending. It has to be based off of the American version because she
right.
survived that version. So
Yeah.
I know a little bit about what happens, but I won't say. And it's very.
All, yeah, all I knew was
I mean, I could
that
say
she's
it.
in the
I
in
could
this
say
new
what I
movie. I
know.
mean,
And you could skip ahead 30 seconds if you don't want spoilers for the Descent Part 2.
all right, let it out.
Because the thing is that I hear bad reviews about this movie. Like, nobody says that it's good. Okay, so
The
spoiler. Here you
part
go.
two.
She goes down in the cave, and guess who she finds? Juno. Juno is still
Eh,
alive. That alone made me actually want to watch it. Otherwise, I had no desire.
is it the same actresses?
I think so, but I haven't looked, but I think it is. But yeah, I'm like, oh, okay. Now that I know that she goes down there and finds Juno, what's up with that drama?
Right,
I need to see that.
right. Yeah, I had heard. Well, I'd read that we learn a little bit more about her character.
Ooh, maybe we
So
will.
therefore, I knew she was in it. I was like, oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah. All right, so do you have any other parts of the movie to talk about that we didn't touch on yet?
Well, what was your favorite scene?
My favorite scene. I mean, I really like the scene when she was stuck in the cave and we thought that she wasn't going to make it out of that, like when the cave starts to collapse on her. Like that's probably
Mm-hmm.
my favorite moment in the movie. Like that was
Yeah.
a good moment. And then also the part where she's climbing, I think it was Juno, right, where they have to cross
Mm-hmm.
that huge gap and she's using all of her upper body strength to make it across. That was really
Right.
tense also, and I really like that part too, which happens right after the cave
Mm-hmm.
collapses. So I really like that.
Yeah. Those were my two favorites as well, which I find interesting.
Hmm.
Like, were those the best scenes in the movie? I don't know. Do other people have the same favorite scenes?
I did also like when one of them was like laying down with the camera, and this is right when
Mm-hmm.
they didn't realize that the monsters couldn't see. And so we
Mm-hmm.
just have like the night vision with the camera on on the crawler, and the crawler's like coming up to her and like screaming, but it doesn't know that she's there because it can't see her and she's just still, and we're just watching it come at her and then it just goes away. And then that's when she realizes she's like, "Oh, it can't see me."
Mm-hmm.
So I like that too. So this movie is stacked with horror references, which I thought was pretty cool. So Psycho, there's a shower scene in the cabin that pays homage to this. We have Deliverance, where after their whitewater rafting, they are driving through the backwoods with banjo music on the radio, which, you know, Deliverance has the whole banjo thing going on. At the end, as we've already said, it's like Texas Chainsaw Massacre when she's like, you know, she gets out of the cave and she's like screaming, she's bloody. There's even a logging truck that passes her by, like the end of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Carrie, when one of the characters comes up out of the bloody pond and she's covered in blood. Now this one I didn't catch in the actual movie of The Descent, but Alien, apparently there's a part where the character stands under a stream of water and looks up and water splatters on a hat. So I don't remember that part in The Descent, but apparently that's referenced there. How about you? What do you have for us?
Well, so Shauna McDonald, who played Sarah, I have a note here that she underwent rigorous training to learn how to climb and navigate through tight spaces. And something that was interesting, they encouraged her to avoid mirrors during the shoot to better capture the character's psychological state. I also read that there were several scenes that were removed from the film to maintain its pace and intensity. And that these scenes did provide additional character development and backstory. So maybe that's why it feels a little disjointed to me. Maybe, maybe all that was written in and then they removed it. Let's see. I have a note that it received praise from renowned horror director Guillermo del Toro, who listed it as one of his favorite films of the year. Oh, and here was my note for the accents. To ensure consistency in accents, the actors, most of whom were British, adopted American accents for the characters during the North Carolina scenes.
That's so weird. Why would you do that?
That is weird.
I'm going to have to go back and like look for that.
I mean, if it's on purpose, it's kind of interesting. But that's all I found on it, so I don't really know anymore. So the production team used approximately a ton of red-dyed oatmeal to create the look of the crawler's blood. This oatmeal mixture was used for various scenes requiring gore and blood effects. And then my final note here was in regards to the Deliverance film, that the initial whitewater rafting scene at the beginning, it mirrors the very beginning of Deliverance as well. They also open with a whitewater rafting scene, which involves a group of friends going on an adventurous trip.
I heard or like read supposedly that when they were filming, they referred to one of the crevices that was built as the vagina. And that's kind of a whole thing where we're kind of talking about going down into the womb.
Right. That's interesting.
So among the bones that Sarah falls into is a wolf's head, which came from one of the werewolves from the director's previous film, Dog Soldiers.
Oh.
So that's there. Also, one of the actresses is Swedish, so there's a point when they are in the cabin waking up, and who is it? It's, let's see, Sam. Juno is waking up Sam and says the Swedish phrase for good morning, which I used to know how to say since I was engaged to be married to a Swede, but good morgon. Anyway, I thought it was interesting that there's a little bit of Swedish in there because she is Swedish. That's all I have for the what are we calling this? Like the fun facts and trivia section.
Yeah.
The next part then would be, should there be a sequel? Well, there is a sequel, and neither of us have seen it. And it does not have...
Is there only one?
Yeah, and there's not good reviews. But some people say it's worth a watch, so I might watch it soon here. I imagine you will probably not watch it, will you?
We'll let you watch it first. If you give it good reviews, then I'll check
I just want
to
see what Juno's been up to be honest.
Yeah, I kind of do
what's going on there? All right, so let's move into the awards. I know you didn't like this, But do you have any awards? I have 4.
Um, I would give it an award for that trapped claustrophobic opening um, cave scene, how it crumbles
Mm-hmm.
and they're pulling her up and they're like, leave the bag of rope. That felt realistic.
Yeah.
I liked it. And I like the lighting. Like it made me want to watch the movie. So that gets an award.
Yeah. I can't believe I didn't write that down as an award because, yeah, I totally agree with you. My award is just the fact that it's an all-female cast because can you name any other horror movies where it's just an all-female cast and like there's not even like there's barely a man in it? If so, please
Yes.
let me know.
Yes, I've got one for
Yeah.
you. It's called Tag.
Oh, yeah.
You need to watch that one. I think I don't know. I want to say that it is Korean, but I don't remember. But yeah, Tag is all female. I haven't seen it since it was new, but it was very interesting until the very end of the movie. Then there might be a couple male characters, but only within the last few minutes, and that was interesting.
There's a letterbox list that I like, which is called Movies Where There Are No Men.
Mm-hmm.
And the rule is there either can't be men or if they're in it, it's for less than 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be an interesting list to look at and kind of like narrow it down to horror.
Yeah,
Anyway, all right, what's your next award if you have any?
I don't have any more.
Oh, that's it. All right, so then it's all me. So then I would give it an award for what I thought was the very shocking opening of her husband and daughter being impaled. Um, I give it an award for the twist of the monsters, the monster twist,
Mm-hmm.
which I know that you were not into. But I like that it suddenly became like a different type of movie. I mean, it was still the cave movie, and they still have to like get out of the cave, but now we have this addition of monsters.
Yeah.
And then, as I mentioned earlier, I really like that scene of one of the characters. I think it was Sarah slowly coming up out of the pond of bloody water. I
Yeah.
just think that's a really good
Yeah. It
shot.
was. Yeah.
So let's talk about the ratings. 1 to 5. What do you rate it?
Oh, that's right. We're going up to 5 now, not just 3. Um, wow. Well, if we're going to 5, I think I'll be generous and give it a 2.
All right. The last time I asked, you gave it a 1.
Yes.
I give this movie a 5. I think that it's a great movie. To me, it's an almost perfect movie, and I give it a 5. And I've watched it a ton of times.
The super fan.
Yeah. So, Ketchum, do you want to wrap this up for us?
Yes. So be sure to join us next week when we dive deep into the one, the only, the original Halloween movie from 1978. In the meantime, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at AA Horror Highway. Also, our email is aahorrorhighway@gmail. On Twitter, we are Horror Highway, which is Horror HWY, and our website is also horrorhwy.com. Our horror hotline is always open to calls from the fans who feel so inclined. We love to receive your messages. You can leave us a message at 662 AA. So you've been listening to the AA Horror Highway. I'm Amy Ketchum,
And I'm Amy Casio.
and we will see you next time.